is the summation of what happens in our daily practices. And through these daily practices, he continued to improve and continue to improve and continue to improve to the point where during his senior year, he's the goalie for the senior varsity soccer team, which is super exciting. He beat out a lot of kids that had natural talent because their trajectory wasn't as high. He also played second chair as a trumpeter, graduated with 4.15 GPA, and got into university as a very low acceptance rate. All with, he started off in a very different place, but he was able to build on daily habits and created what I would call momentum. Wouldn't we like to have that in life? Right? So I'm going to contend today that our mastery of trying to figure out how we can be able to create momentum in our life really isn't necessarily about the goals that we have. It's more about the daily practices that create growth. Growth gives us low, and our growth is the summation of our daily practices. Are you good with that? Are you okay with this? Okay. So turn to your neighbor and say, I'm going to learn how to grow.
I'm going to learn how to grow.
Turn back to your neighbor and take your finger like this and wiggle it just a little bit and say, it's about time.
I know we're not supposed to hate, but I hate that. Another thing that I hate, especially here in Minnesota, I grew up in Utah, but in Minnesota, we have this thing called Minnesota Nice. You know what I'm talking about? Right? So we pull up, me and some guy on my right, we pull up the four-way stop together. And of course, I come from Utah. I understand that right of way means the person on your right gets to go first, right? Not here. Not here. Just wave me through. What are you doing? You trying to swat a mosquito? Nope. And I'm like, well, I'm not supposed to go, and he's supposed to go. So I wave back to him, and he's waving at me, and I'm waving at him. Then a third car pulls up, and he starts waving too. I hate that, okay? In fact, I think I'm not alone because we're having this whole, serious focus on roundabouts right now just to get over this problem in Minnesota. You with me? Okay? But there's one word that I hate more than anything, and it just drives me nuts. It's the excuse people use when they find themselves not successful. The word is average. I just hate average. Because average tells us it's okay to be like everybody else. Average explains to us that it's perfectly fine just to do what everybody else is doing. The thing is, with average, in a lot of areas of our life, we don't accept average. In fact, we don't even like average. Could you imagine a coffee house going up near your community saying, hey, come buy our coffee, it's average? Not going to work out very well, is it? Or imagine the local hospital saying, schedule your surgery today, we've got average surgeons. That's not going to work out either. Or your organization, right? Come and bring your folks over to us. We've got average care assistants and average nurses, and we provide an average environment, and we have average activities and routines to get them into, and we take a pretty average care of your people. Trust us. Right? It wouldn't work for you. So we don't accept average in all these other areas of life, but sometimes we look at our own leadership or our own organization or our own people and say, you know what, average is good enough. Now I'm going to guess I'm not alone in this faking it business. I'm going to guess maybe you've done some of that too. Why don't you turn to a neighbor? I'll give you 1 minute and 21 seconds. What are some times in your life, in leadership particularly, that maybe you're faking it? Go ahead and share that with your neighbor. Let's get a little vulnerable, a little open with each other right now. Okay, let's come back together. A lot of conversation going on, so I think a lot of us are faking it out there, right? Now this is tough, right? We've been taught over and over again, what do? Fake it till you make it. That works in some areas of life, but when it comes to leadership, I don't think that works very well at all. You see, I've studied leadership for a long time now, and I've noticed a very particular pattern. If you go back to the 80s and 90s and you find any book on leadership, what you're finding is a book on management, teaching us how to go through the policies or procedures of leading a group. In the manufacturing world, that looks like Six Sigma or lean manufacturing. But in our world, we could probably find very similar things that are really just about managing people. That's great. Management is important, but that's not what leadership is. If you move forward, another decade or two, and you look at the early 20th century, 21st century, you will see that leadership has kind of shifted to characteristics of leaders. I remember as I was going through my principal leadership program at the University of Minnesota, there were 27 competencies and 63 sub-competencies to be a good principal. Nobody's ever going to meet that, right? But that was the philosophy in the earliest part of this century, is we need to be able to hit these 13 criteria or 20, and HR people grabbed onto this and loved this, all right? Hopefully you're not the guilty ones in here, but they grabbed onto it and said, all right, we've got an evaluation form, now we can evaluate our leaders. They got to hit these 17 different criteria. They have to be exactly all of this. Could you imagine Richard Branson leading in the exact same way as Warren Buffett? It doesn't work, right? It doesn't work at all. And what we're starting to realize, particularly with the generation that we have coming in now, and our future generation, is they could care less if you hit all 13 characteristics. They just don't care. What do they want? They want one thing. They want you to be real.
And she had to think, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. Does she start at the top of the head? Does she start with the hair? Does she go to the shoulders? When does the feet come in? How does it work? I don't know, right? We have to think about that and create a system. And now she's got a system, and because of that, she'll never forget to use the soap. We just don't. It's just a habit. It's just a habit. So when I talk about open and extending intentionally, this means what are our daily habits? What are our habits that we have that we can create into systems so that this line continues to exceed in our life? So that we continue to see that momentum, we continue to grow. It's not about what goal we want, because the goal stops. There's always an ending point to the goal. It's what do I want to start doing every single day to create momentum? A few more questions for you. How many of us who here hit their snooze button this morning? Who here hit it more than 5 times? Right? How many do you hit, Debbie? What do you think? 5 or 6? Anybody beat Debbie in this?
But I lowered the number of minutes, so
Isn't it true? Don't we do this, right? Don't we do this? Okay, so Debbie, I'm going to pick on you just for a little bit, but here's a free book, right? The other side. Here you go, so I can pick on you, okay? So Debbie, 5 or 6 times each day. Is that pretty normal? Not every morning. Sometimes it's more?
No.
Okay, so there's a pressing thing and you got to get up and you can do it. Here's what happens. Again, this is accidental actions. Hitting snooze is accidental. Even though you change your time, you think you're being intentional. You're not. Because here's what happens. We set our alarm at night to get up at whatever. For me, it's 5 a.m. And then the first thing you do, the very first thing you do, the way you start your entire day, is to break a promise to yourself. How good is that? They say that if you want to develop self-confidence, there are 2 things you need. Number 1, good friends. Number 2, keep promises to yourself. So you are actually getting less and less self-confidence every time you hit that snooze button. You follow me on this? I know it's hard. So when we open intentionally, I'm talking about our morning routines. First step, choose a time to get up, set your alarm, let it go off, and then get up. Turn to your neighbor, make a commitment. Tomorrow I'm getting up at, and this is when my alarm's going off. Go for it. Turn to your neighbor. Do it.
In miles per hour, how fast is it humanly possible to pedal a bicycle? Think on that for just a moment. Get a number into your head. Not downhill. We're talking salt. We're talking flat salt flats. Just get an idea on that. Once you've got a number in your head, if you've got something to write it down, go ahead and write it down. And then don't lie. Just share it with that partner. Be honest with your other. Don't change your number. Just share it with your partner. How fast do you think it is humanly possible to pedal a bike? Give you 37 seconds. Go. I was sharing this message quite a number of years ago, actually, with a group of FedEx people over in Michigan. And there's one guy there named Tom. And Tom raises his hand in the middle of it. He's like, Jason, you don't get it. I said, well, what do I not get? He says, well, I've been working with Jerry for 25 years. Jerry's a 3. He's just a 3. I've known him for a long time. And I don't care how many times you're going to tell me he's a 10. He's not. He is a 3. And I said, okay, Tom, can I challenge you to do something? He said, I don't know. I said, can you go back to work when we're done with this conference, and can you at least look for some evidence, right? Be a seeker of good and find if he's maybe a 4. can you look for some evidence that maybe he's a 4? Reluctantly, he agreed to that. 2 months later, I get an email from Tom. And it right bold letters all the way across the email. It says, guess what, Jason? Jerry's actually a 5.